Okay people, so after chapter 305 of My Hero Academia, a lot to take away from what we learned, in particular regarding, of course, Deku's never-ending resolve to be a hero, but also a few different instances, in particular something that I honestly started to come to a conclusion regarding all for one. I think that there's something even more behind the scenes that hasn't quite been put together that I'm going to bring to you guys' attention today with this video, because I think there's more to it with All for One. We've seen for the most part he's an evil piece of shit, right? But I think there's a little bit more context behind why he's doing what he's doing and what's happening to him up until this point in the story, even going back to the All Might days, his fight against All Might, a lot of different aspects. So yeah, we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the request, or the question, the test, shall I say, that was made from Nana to Deku. We're going to talk about, once again, those mysterious two final one for all users that, you know, I've had my theory already. So yeah, without further ado people, let's talk about some My Hero Academia greatness. Let's do it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
So chapter 305, a lot of it for the most part was mainly once again solidifying Deku's resolve, because the story could have gone a few different ways, right? It could have been a big drastic change with Deku's character had he answered that question a different way. When Nana said, hey fam, do you think you'd be able to do it? If you had to, if it came down to it, would you be able to kill Tomura, Shigaraki? And I'll be honest with you, like, I knew the answer before she even asked it. Like, when she asked that question, I was like, yo fam, this is Deku. Granted, she doesn't know him, but they've been inside of him this entire time, right? You know, in the Vestige, they've been watching him since All Might passed one for all down to him. But to be honest, when she asked that question, I'm like, yo, this is My Hero Academia, the story of how Deku became the greatest hero. He's not going to kill. This isn't another type of series. Yeah, if it was a different character, maybe if it was Bakugo, it might have been a different story, you know, King of Explodo kills, but no, this is Deku. And even though one of the predecessors, the bald one, pointed it out that, like, yo, some people, you know what I'm saying, might be beyond saving. If you look at him, even when we saw him in the Vestige and he was kind of being under control or under the influence of All for One, he still had eyes of hatred. It wasn't like he really wanted anybody to save him to begin with. He was cold. He was just, he's a hateful dude and he's a villain in and of himself. It's not like, I completely understand, and don't get me wrong, I get the whole principle of it. A hero's gonna save somebody no matter what, but I do think that to a certain degree, an element that I like is the fact that, you know, the One for All predecessor presented that, like, yo, it's not like he's viewing like, yo, somebody save me. Like, he's looking like, I want to burn everything down to the ground no matter what. And when Deku presented the idea of, yo, what I saw, even though I get it, you know, he's an evil guy or whatnot, he killed a lot of people, hurt a lot of people, all that jazz, but I seen a sad little boy. And I've been saying that for the longest time, just being honest. Like, ever since we got the flashback of Shigaraki's past and what happened, I just always thought he was a traumatized kid that was then further manipulated, but that's still been in him. Even when he was fighting against Endeavor and the war, which, my god, that was such a freaking grandiose war, god damn it. But when he was fighting and all that stuff, I still felt like there was a part of him that was holding him back from being a complete monster, and that is the representation of what Deku was talking about. That crying little boy inside of Shigaraki is the one that had that dream, that wanted to be a hero, that had all those ideals, great ideals and whatnot, that could have been an incredible successor to his grandmother Nana, had All for One not manipulated him and, you know, led him down this dark path. Like, yeah, some bad shit happened. He was unfortunate to have, like, you know, his father being resentful because of Nana and hating heroes, and everything that happened, his quirk manifesting the way it did. But if he had the right guidance, like, you know, if Gran Torino was the one that found him, it might have been a whole different ball game. So All for One really manipulated him, but that part of him, that good side, that innocent side, like Deku said, that crying sad boy, is still in there till this point. It's just really under the, you know, guise of, hey, I want to kill everything and everybody, screw society, I hate everything. But I bring all that up to say, let's talk about Shigaraki, right? Because one of the things we've seen in the war in particular was the fact that Shigaraki's face was crackling, right? It was cracking up, and I was looking at it like, but what the hell's going on? He's like falling apart. Even up until this point in the story right now, we've seen the last time that All for One inside of Shigaraki's body was like, yo, I need to relax, I need to rest or something, because you see that his body is cracking. what's up with that? What's going on? And then you get the last couple chapters, 304 and 305, is kind of setting the stage for, in my opinion, what's to come, and honestly going into the motives of All for One. Because if Shigaraki's body is cracking, and we know now after 304 in particular, that basically if you have more than one quirk, for example, what was said about One for All, how a lot of these, people that already had a quirk, adding One for All shortened their life, and how the one predecessor started getting a crack on his face, that got me to thinking that that's probably what happens to anybody that gets more than one quirk, let alone what happened with Shigaraki, that he essentially got something similar to One for All with All for One inside of him, and that's why his body was deteriorating. So then it makes me think, okay, wait a minute. So if that is happening to Shigaraki, right, his body can't take it, and obviously he wasn't perfected, so that's probably something that increased it, sped it up, the whole deteriorating form of his body falling apart. Had he been at 100%, he probably would have a long time to keep on moving. This probably also happened to All for One. Let's take it back a little bit. What was told to us in early on in the story, why he has that quote-unquote mush face, was that All Might gave him a serious injury that kind of, broke his nose and all sorts of shit like that. I'm guessing that there's a possibility that at that particular point, All for One was already falling apart. Remember, he has all these quirks inside of him, similar to what happened to one of the predecessors of One for All. He probably started to fall apart. Maybe he was getting cracks and his face was already, I guess you could say, deteriorating to the point where a punch from All Might just blasted through it, like it turned his face almost into like glass. And let's not forget the fact that till this point, it's still been shadowed out. We haven't actually seen a clear face of what All for One looked like prior to him looking like, again, mush face. I say that because I think it was like a security guard that called him that at one given point. We haven't seen what he actually looked like, so there's a possibility that All for One has been body hopping. Remember, in this chapter, even again, it's mentioned that he was, trying to snatch up Shigaraki's body, and he's doing that in his quest to get One for All. What if he's using that? Because think of like a Orochimaru or a Muzan type of situation where basically he cannot stabilize his body, and that's probably why also he had repairs to his face to make it that everything is staying together. So he is basically being surgically kept together. Think of like a stapler or whatever, stapling him together to keep him alive and going, but his body is probably deteriorating little by little. Him being, restrained and put in that prison and whatnot probably again slowed it down because he's not using quirks on top of all of that. But All for One is probably dying slowly, and that's why he wanted to take Shigaraki's body to get One for All, where maybe One for All in his mind, some way combining it with All for One will stabilize him and make him be able to continue living on. I mean, again, who's to say that All for One hasn't hopped bodies already multiple times, and Shigaraki is just the next victim in line to his, dastardly ways, which again also will add to the motives of it. I don't understand quite why he would feel like adding another giant quirk with multiple quirks in there would help, unless he thinks that maybe perhaps having All for One and One for All combined, the quirk that he already has will make him perfected, that his body could sustain itself. Maybe that's the mindset that he's having of why he would want that as well. But yeah, again, if Shigaraki was falling apart, we've seen that one of the predecessors said he died at 40 because having multiple quirks killed him. There's a possibility that that's already been happening to All for One. He's probably had to hop body after body, again, a la like a Orochimaru, where he couldn't, sustain in a body, and he's trying to perfect himself so that he could continue possibly trying to grab immortality. And imagine with Shigaraki becoming the ultimate evil, if the doctor is able to put him back in that chamber and get him up from 70-something% to 100%, right there he'll be able to sustain himself. All for One, he's thinking, bam, I'll take that body for the time being as long as it can last until I'll be able to get One for All, and bam, I'm perfect. So that's what my mindset is right now as far as what potentially could be going on with All for One and some of his secret motives of why he's been doing what he's been doing. And I mean, aside from that, with chapter 305, the only other thing I would say that was very notable was the ending, where All for One's brother in the Vestige told the final two One for All quirk users, like, yo, okay, y'all gotta play nicely. If you guys don't help him out, Deku can't become, perfected and use this quirk to its full capabilities. So that was kind of interesting, and again, goes into my theory. In case you don't know my theory, I'll link it in the description below. Bakugo, Kirishima, time travel, a lot of crazy shit. And when I say my theory, I don't mean like I came up with it, because I've seen it floating around. It just started to make more and more sense if you add everything together. But I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think there's a possibility that All for One is basically trying to escape death, hopping bodies, and he feels as though if he gets One for All and combines it with All for One, the quirk quirk that he already has that he'll be able to be perfected and his body won't fall apart. Is that what's been happening in Shigaraki, what we were seeing in the war with his body cracking? The same thing that happened to that predecessor of One for All. He was basically dying because the quirks was eating up his body. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the My Hero Academia manga with chapter 306 and beyond. I just can't wait to see where this bad boy is going. That's all I have for this one though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links of course are in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always people, have an awesome day and remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Have an awesome day. Peace in, and yeah, can't wait to see what All For One's next move is going to be and if there's any validity to this theory.